Hey, what's up guys? Node Investor here. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. There was some pretty good action over the weekend on some of the alts. We're seeing a little bit of a rotation back into the bigger cap names, the big cap, mid cap names, which is usually my preference. I like to see that. If those are strong, generally that will begin to trickle down to the rest of the market. And so I'm going to go over the charts. We'll look at Bitcoin and we'll look at a handful of other alts that are looking good here and setting up some trades that I did over the weekend. I don't usually do a whole lot of trading during the weekend. I tend to slow down a little bit just because the weekdays are so busy with crypto and with some of the other markets that I look at. But there was some pretty good setups and some pretty good moves. And so we'll take a look at some of those, as well as some levels to pay attention to here as we look at Bitcoin here in the near term. So looking at the 4-hour chart here, just very quickly want to recap. We had that big bullish reversal a few days ago, and I pointed that out. I did a quick video talking about, hey, we could start to see some more upside here. Look out for a little bit of a pullback. That made for a nice little secondary entry. And since then, we started to see this stair stepping higher. Now, at the end of the last week, I posted a video talking about, hey, we could see a little bit of a pullback here. We're heading into the weekend. And we saw a very mild pullback. We saw a very slow pullback right to the moving averages there. Very positive. And then over the weekend, just big move higher. Bitcoin Cash continues to move. We saw many of the other alts, the bigger cap names, leading the way up. So as Bitcoin started to move higher, we saw them pushing higher. The thing to note here is we broke through this resistance level that I was looking at, this little consolidation that we had back here. And we broke through that. But it very quickly began to pull back. You saw some profit taking show up there yesterday, and this pullback has been very constructive. We're seeing a pullback right to these moving averages, right to the support zone. And so what I'm looking for here now is a bounce that'll begin to take us past the high that we saw here a couple of days ago and go into that $6,500 mark. And that'll be very positive for the alts. If we see Bitcoin start to play out this way, it'll just bring a lot more confidence back into the market. We'll see another leg up. And I expect that the alts will continue to outperform. Looking at some of the other names, which we'll look at here shortly, names like Ethereum, Litecoin, IOTA, some of those are really starting to show some volume coming in here, and they're outperforming on the BTC pair, which is good news all around. And so that's what I'm looking at here. But near term, just looking at Bitcoin on this pullback, it may have found a little bit of a low, but this is the level I'm watching here. This 63.70 at most. You don't want it to undercut the low, right? This big bar that it had that pushed right through resistance. We do not want to see prices undercut that. So if they continued lower, at most I'd like to see 63.50 or so hold as the ultimate low. But right now we may have found that low right at that 22 EMA. We'll see if that holds here over the next couple of days or the next few 4-hour candle bars, next day or so. And so that's what I'm watching. But right now it's looking positive. Things are looking good. Very constructive pullback. We needed to see it. You can see on the RSI here, the levels are a little bit elevated, and this pullback has helped really cool that off, help reset that. You saw the MACD quickly dip into the red, and now as prices are moving higher, I expect that to start going green again. So it just really helped kind of reset all around, help reset the charts here. If we go to the daily chart, it's good to see that we've overcome this candle. I pointed that out in the last video. We wanted to see prices start moving above this, would really start to solidify some of this bounce. We've bounced right up to that moving average. We pulled back, and then over the weekend we saw that big push higher. Seeing a little pause here today, but still looking pretty good. You saw a daily close yesterday that was above, barely above, but it was above this little bit of a range here. And so very good to see that all around. This is a good first step in potentially reversing this shakeout. But you can see in the big picture, still very relatively flat, right? I mean, just kind of still a really tight, narrow range. But I'm really liking the action that I'm seeing, especially in the altcoins, some of the bigger cap names. They're starting to look real positive. We're seeing some pretty good moves off the lows and some continuation. And so all in all, very positive. I'm still bullish in the intermediate term for both Bitcoin and the alts. And so I'm just going to stay with the long end for now, and liking this little bit of a pullback we're seeing on this 4-hour. So we want to see that continue to hold and consolidate, but just very constructive, very good to see all around. And so until that changes, you got to give this recent uptrend the benefit of the doubt. So looking at Ethereum versus BTC, this is what I was really liking here over the weekend. Look at how strong this move was going into this breakout right here. And so I remember I pointed this out here just because we were very tight, very narrow versus BTC, and basically ETH was just kind of on par with Bitcoin, just kind of holding up, not doing a whole lot, but we started to see a little bit movement late last week, and then over the weekend, very strong push higher. Since then, we've seen a little bit of a pullback, but it was extended on the 4-hour chart, so this pullback was healthy. It's just letting these moving averages catch up, letting that RSI cool off. Look at how high the RSI got on that 4-hour chart, almost 90. And so very strong action, good volume on that push higher. And I'm liking this because when Ethereum starts to outperform, it just shows well for the overall altcoin market, especially the bigger cap names. And so that's what we're starting to see here. We're starting to see some ETH outperformance. And you're looking at Litecoin, very similar price action on Litecoin versus Bitcoin. You can see here another strong move here. RSI again was a little bit elevated, not as strong, but has since pulled back in, and it's still holding above these moving averages. And a lot of these are just really, in my opinion, setting up some good secondary entry points for a potential leg higher. Going to the daily chart here, you can see they're starting to break that downtrend a little bit. We want to see some follow through. We don't want this to be the last day of the move and really the end of the move there. On the daily chart, one thing I do want to note is the RSI has not cleared that 60 level. I want to see that RSI get back above 60. That'll start to confirm some of this bullish momentum we're seeing here near term. But all in all, good action, starting to turn the corner, seeing a little bit of volume coming in here in the very near term. Let's take a look at some of the other alts that I'm liking here and some setups to keep an eye on. So first off, I want to point out basic attention. We saw this big move last week after the Coinbase announcement, and it has since pulled back and made for a nice little secondary entry. Quick trade on this one. You can see this was the big breakout bar that we saw, and it just kind of went sideways, cooled off as expected, and set up this nice little secondary entry point. And you can see there was a little bit of a downtrend that was forming here on the 4-hour chart that looked like a nice little bit of a bull flag there, which held above the support level and then had a quick breakout here today on some more news there. And you can see at the peaks, that was a quick 10%, pulled back, has been pretty volatile, but on the daily charts, still holding up well. A lot of momentum, a lot of volume still showing up here on this name. So it's still trending higher, just continue to march higher. A level that I am watching here is daily resistance right around that 5,400 Satoshi level. So that's really the level to be keeping an eye on here. If it can clear the highs from Friday, then that's going to be your next resistance level. And it's still about a 10% move from here to the next level up, so 10-11%. So that's really the level that I'm watching near term. It is a bit extended, no doubt. You can see there's a slight bullish, or excuse me, slight bearish divergence starting to show up on this daily chart. But if this continues to push higher, you'll see the RSI start climbing back up, and we'll negate that. On the 4-hour chart, similar as well, but the RSI did have a chance to cool off a little bit, but still holding the moving averages, still marching higher. And so has some attention right now, no pun intended, as it's been recently listed to Coinbase, and there's now accepting some deposits, so we'll see trading begin on this one soon. IOTA. Now, IOTA had a good breakout over the weekend as well. You can see it cleared a little bit of resistance here, and let me zoom in on that. And since then, it's just been consolidating here a little bit, but I'm really liking the 1-hour chart. This is IOTA BTC. A little bit of a bull pennant starting to form here, getting very symmetrical as price sits tight here at the highs. You can see this has let also the RSI cool off, let the MACD cool off a little bit, but keep an eye on this one because a move above that 7,800 will start to signal some more upward momentum. On that daily chart, has a lot of room to go. It's just kind of putting in a little bit of a low. I did some Fibonacci analysis here on the retracement, and the first bounce basically went to the 382 level here. You can see that. On a pullback, I'd like to see another leg up. Next level to watch is at 50% retracement, but then ultimately I'm looking for the 618, which corresponds with this horizontal price resistance, basically around that 8,300 level. You can see this was a little bit of consolidation support there that broke down on this big candle, and so we could see a counter trend bounce, a retracement up to around that level. So definitely watching this one here. Good action here in the short term, just seen some consolidation. Again, that 4-hour chart looks pretty good, marching higher, good volume on that break. Now we want to see some more follow through to the upside. Ripple breaks out. Look at that tight chart we were talking about last week. Big volume coming in here today. Going to that daily chart, you can see it finally clears this range. Next level I'm watching here is this prior resistance level, not far away, around 7,900 basically. And so it's still moving upward. Had a little bit of a pause pullback on this 1 hour just because it got so extended on that move higher, but still looking pretty good, just kind of sitting tight, consolidating some of that move. Here's the 4-hour view, but still looking good. Very solid breakout, a lot of volume coming in, showing that conviction. That's what you want to see on these type of breakouts. It had that fake, not fake, but that first attempt of a breakout late last week and or over the weekend, pulled right back, held that support point, and then today showing some really good follow through on volume. EOS, another one that I was looking at for a potential breakout. It did break out, pulled right back in, seen a little bit of an outside reversal bar here today, so I'm keeping an eye on it here to see if this support level holds. It's not unusual to see these throwbacks that come back and test the breakout point, but we don't want to see this one just kind of fizzle out and roll over. And so definitely watching this one here. On the USD chart, very similar type of action. And you can see it's been marching up higher, just kind of looking good. Had that breakout, pulling right back. And so I'm watching this zone right here as a place that I want to see it hold support. So keeping an eye on EOS. But if it can hold up, then I'm looking at around 570 for the next upside target, and then above that around 585. OMG breaking out here again today, showing some good volume coming in, and I'm really liking the long-term view of this chart. If you look at the daily chart, it's just putting in this big low, just like many other charts that I've been pointing out here. We talked about ICX, we talked about just a lot of these alts that are, in my opinion, putting in these good long-term lows versus Bitcoin. And you can see OMG is just kind of been building some momentum, showing a little bit of accumulation here at the lows over the last couple of weeks. But today showing some good action. Now it has been at these levels here recently before I had that big pullback, so we'll see if we could finally push through. It's testing that resistance again as I record this, but the volume here is good. We've seen this again before, so we want to see this show some follow through and start to break higher above this little bit of a zone that it's been in. But the big picture, the long-term daily chart, really liking the way this one's forming. Zcash. So looking at the other Coinbase potentials, we'll cycle through a couple of them, but some of the group here was jumping in on this one earlier. It did signal some early buy signals here, and now starting to move higher. You can see it had that breakout over the weekend again, pulled right back in, and look at where it held. It held that breakout point, prior resistance, now support. Let these moving averages catch up and starting to look good here. On this 1 hour view, you can see the MACD was starting to push higher and really starting to signal, and then we're seeing this breakout here over the last hour with very good volume coming in. So really liking what I'm seeing here. This one has a good potential as well, potential Coinbase listing. Still has to break above this resistance on the dollar pair around 128 or so, but near term just showing some good action, some positive signals are coming in here, and so Zcash is really starting to get some momentum here. Another one is Cardano. Now we saw this one moving late last week and on sympathy with the basic attention listing, and this one has continued to just march along, move higher. Very nice. What I'm really liking here is the BTC pair, and I was looking at this over the weekend, posted this chart here with the group, but it did break out finally above that. There was two things that I was looking at here. If you look at the big daily chart, just very tight. The price range was really starting to narrow, a little bit of a wedge forming, and kind of pointed this out to everyone saying, hey, keep an eye out for this one. It's looking like it wants to break that downtrend. We're starting to see some momentum, and sure enough, it did finally break out over the weekend. You can also argue there was a little bit of a cup and handle here, and that was really the breakout point. Again, this one is more of a long-term play for me. I'm kind of holding this one not so much as a trade, but more of a longer-term position. One, because it could be added to Coinbase, but two, I like the big long-term low that it's been putting in. And so this one's really starting to move, build some momentum. I mean, in the big picture, just has high potential, even if it just retraces part of the way up from this big downtrend that it's been in. I mean, just look at how far this has really fallen over the big picture, and it looks like it may finally be putting in a pretty good low. So keep an eye on these. I'm really liking the momentum that's coming in here, seeing a lot of volume coming in. Now there was a high volume reversal here today off the highs. You can see the volume there, big red candle, but it's still holding above the moving averages, still holding above these breakout points. So until that changes, just keep an eye on it here. But I'm really liking this upward momentum that we're starting to see. Stellar Lumens. Now Stellar Lumens, I did have a trade on this, and it did hit my target on the trade, but it's still marching higher, just holding these moving averages, still edging up, consolidating a little bit here right at the highs. And so what I really like about this one here too, though, is the big picture. I mean, just look at this long-term chart. This daily chart is really consolidating, really starting to narrow up here. And so I'm really liking that, especially in the most recent past. You can see just how small that range has started to really become relative to the prior history on this one here. So this is Stellar BTC, just starting to look really good here. Potential breakout in the big picture, which would really lead to a pretty sizable move versus Bitcoin. And so definitely one I'm watching here for the bigger picture. Taking a look at Bitcoin Cash, this one has had a really strong move, and again, this is kind of front running in anticipation of that hard fork that's coming up here in a couple of weeks, or at this point really about a week, a little over a week now. But you can see just how strong this has been and just continues to march along. Has gotten a little bit choppier up here in the last day or so as it's kind of consolidating some of that move, but this one's setting up and potentially could go another leg higher here. The RSI is cooling off a little bit. Volume is starting to decline as this one just kind of sits tight. So keep an eye on this one, getting very symmetrical here as well. If you go to the 1 hour charts, you can see that view, just these highs and the lows are really starting to narrow in. And so it'll be interesting to see if this one produces another leg higher in anticipation of the hard fork. Would not surprise me. That's generally how these play out. You kind of see that front running, and then a few days to right before the event, you tend to see a little bit of profit taking. It ultimately just depends on what the anticipated value of the new forked coin is going to be. And so many times if the price has moved far enough that it really doesn't matter what the new value's coin is or the new coin's value is, you'll see some profit taking happen before the actual fork event or immediately afterwards. And so generally the way I play these is you look for these opportunities to jump in prior to the fork, but I usually get out of the way before that actual event happens. But if you look at the daily chart, I mean, it is certainly extended, so this is a tougher one at this point just because it's had that strong move over the last few days, pausing here a little bit finally, but still very much extended from the big picture. But you can see it's also testing some resistance here on the BTC pair. If we look at the USD pair, it did push through that first level of resistance, and it's now at the next level here, right around that 567 level or so. Above that, I'd be looking at around 620 as really your next target on this one. So could keep going, but again, it'd be healthier if it just paused here for another day or two, just kind of let things cool off a little bit, and that would really support some more strong upward momentum. But again, it is consolidating here and it's starting to set up here, so it's definitely getting ready on the shorter term time frames. Overall, guys, I'm still feeling relatively bullish in the near term on some of these alts. We're seeing a rotation right now. Remember last couple weeks where a lot of the smaller cap, mid cap names were really moving, while most of the USD pairs, the bigger cap names, were just kind of sitting tight and just basically on cue with BTC. And we're now starting to see a little bit of rotation, a little bit more depth across the board in terms of the number of names that are moving. So that's good to see. A few that I'm watching here, AE had a nice reversal bar today. Keep an eye on that one here. Obviously, we talked to OMG. That one's still moving. Zcash is looking pretty good here. But you are seeing a little bit of pullback on some of these other ones. For example, Link has been relatively strong here for the last couple of weeks, seeing a little bit of pause action finally. Polymath was a big mover last couple of weeks, also pulling in. So definitely the rotation continues, and that's usually what we see. We see the big moves, and then other names that have been sitting tight start moving. You'll see the prior runners really starting to pull back. And so we're seeing some of that right now, but all in all, pretty good action near term. And again, not really huge moves yet. I mean, you still single digits here over the last couple of days. I mean, there's some exceptions. Obviously, things like basic attention have been very strong, and some of the others are starting to get there, but I don't think we've seen the huge moves yet. So I still expect there's more to come. Ultimately, it's going to depend if Bitcoin can break through some of that resistance and start to really show some more upward momentum. I really believe that would show a lot more confidence and really get some of these other names moving. So going back to BTC again, levels to watch near term. I'm watching this support level right here to see if it can hold up here today, and we'll start to see some more upward momentum. But ultimately, I want to see this take out these prior highs, this little consolidation zone, and start to close above this level. That would be very positive to see in the near term if we can start to get above that. And again, that's not really a huge move. So, I mean, if you look at where prices are now, I mean, you're talking less than 1%, basically about 1% movement to get back above these levels. And so wouldn't take a whole lot, especially if volume really started to come in. You're seeing the shorts on both ETH and BTC really start to cover over the last couple of days. And so all in all, just good action. But keep an eye on the support levels near term. We know how quickly these markets can turn. But for now, we'll just go with the flow. The uptrend's in place still. And so just wanted to bring that update, guys. I appreciate you watching. Appreciate you being here as always. I'll be doing a live stream tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. I'd love to have you join me, and we'll take a look at some charts live together. So till then, happy trading. Take care, everyone.